Weep away my pain. Bring your healing to my heart. Help me love once again. Cares and worries get me down. Fear of failure fills my day. When I'm lost and all alone, help me, Lord, to find your way. People knocking at my door, strangers seeking love and care. Never let me turn them down. Teach me gently how to share. Children, come into my life with your laughter and your song. When will I become like them? Teach me, Lord, to sing along.
Shalom, dear friends. Welcome back to our pilgrimage with the book of Leviticus. In the previous episode, we discussed the clean and the unclean issue. By following the dietary rules, the Israelites observe the order of creation and are separated from the other nations. Such separateness is a fundamental component of holiness, as we read in chapter 11, 44 to 45. For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am holy. And you shall not defile yourself with any swarming creature that moves on the earth. For I am the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall be holy, for I am holy. The animals deemed unsuitable for consumption are termed impure, and contact with their corpses explicitly defiles persons. The end of chapter 11 moved from what is consumed to what may be touched. The repeated rationale for all these laws is the divine holiness, in which all human beings with holiness share. Friends, we now move to chapter 12, which speaks of the uncleanness of childbirth. It should be made clear right at the outset that for Bible, neither procreation nor childbirth is sinful. Like other bodily impurities, the defilement attached to the childbirth has no moral significance whatsoever. It is a fact of nature. According to Jewish law, bodily discharges like blood cause temporary uncleanness in human beings. Many ancient people viewed childbirth as a cause of impurity. However, in the Bible, this state of uncleanness arose neither from the act of conception nor from the delivery as such, but rather from the loss of blood connected by the delivery. Behind the laws enjoined is the value of life from cradle to grave. The events that follow childbirth, like the circumcision of a son and the purification of the mother, guarantee purity, social harmony, and the hope of a happy life. Women giving birth were considered unclean and would remain unclean for 40 days, that is 33 plus 7 days, if they delivered male children, and for 80 days, that is 14 plus 66, if they delivered female children. The entire period of impurity is a multiple of 40, which is a common biblical number representing completion. Childbirth produces impurity because of the mother's postpartum flow of blood. To understand this law found in chapter 12, the modern reader should call to mind the common human reaction in the sight of blood. Bleeding is typically abnormal, and blood caused by an accident, for example, at the workplace, makes people panic. The ancient people shared such emotional reactions and gave blood a rich variety of meanings. It was at once the source of life and a symbol of death. During the Exodus event in chapter 12 of Exodus, the Passover blood could ward off evil. We should remember some people even faint at the sight of blood. The woman's vitality linked with her blood was diminished by childbirth, and by that token, she was separated from Yahweh, the source of life, until her former health was restored. The uncleanness was more pronounced during the period following immediately after birth. After the initial period, she remained out of contact with the public for an additional 33 days after the birth of a boy and 66 days after the birth of a girl. Why such a discrimination? Many people question. Is it because of the inferiority status given to women in the traditional Jewish society? Maybe it's not clear. But the birth of a male resulted in lesser uncleanness, probably because of the greater strength and vitality connected with the male child. At the end of the designated period, the women effected their own purification through the offering of atoning sacrifices in the form of offering of lamb and sin offering by way of offering pigeon or turtle dove. Remember that there is no discrimination, as the offering was the same for both male and female birth. A bird offering Either a turtle dove or a pigeon was permitted for both sacrifices, atonement and sin offering, for the woman who, if she belonged to a poorer class. Like in Luke chapter 2, verses 23-24. We have the offering of Mother Mary on the occasion of her purification. And that is the simple offering that she belonged to this poorer category. The male children had to be circumcised on the 8th day after the birth. Circumcision is the symbol of the covenant that God made with Abraham, which we saw in Genesis chapter 17, verse 12. And there are other passages. The circumcision is unrelated to impurity. I repeat, unrelated to impurity and purification. It is performed on the 8th day after birth and immediately follows the initial 7-day period of impurity. It is an insertion into the community. Let us look at the reasons behind these laws. They are intended to ensure protection and rest for the mother. The mother who has given birth to a child, either male or female, is guaranteed rest for either 40 or 80 days by declaring her unclean. She is also protected from sexual relationship during this period. She is assured of all kinds of external disturbances while extolling indirectly the glory of motherhood and her womanhood. There is something positive about this. The next two chapters, chapter 13 and 14, which are comparatively long, deal with leprosy and the purification. The Jewish people believed that leprosy and some skin diseases made people unclean. They isolated people with such diseases, and it's mainly because they thought that these diseases were contagious. We who have witnessed and experienced COVID-19, we testify to the stress and worry caused by the fear of viral infection. The pandemic pushed people beyond their ability to cope, and skin ailments rendered persons unclean, with consequences that ostracize them from the community for shorter or longer periods. Chapter 13, verse 4. But if the spot is white in the skin of his body and appears no deeper than the skin, and the hair in it has not turned white, the priest shall confine the deceased person for a period of 7 days. Further, in chapter 13, verse 45-46, those who suffer from any contagious skin disease must wear torn clothes, and let the hair of his head be disheveled, and shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. As long as the disease lasts, they will be ceremoniously unclean and must live in isolation outside the camp. This regulation applied to all who were afflicted by leprosy, whether they were persons of high rank or just ordinary people. We can see Miriam, the sister of Moses, living outside the camp when she was affected by leprosy in the book of Numbers chapter 12. Similarly, King Uzziah was staying outside his palace when he was affected by leprosy, reported in the book of 2 Kings chapter 15 verse 5. Now you must remember, not every skin disease made one unclean, but only those considered active and therefore infectious. Such malignancy manifested itself in different ways through spreading, through sores, which penetrated the skin with discoloring of the, let's say, surrounding hair, ordinary skin blotches, scabs resulting from boils or burns, scalp disorder, face eruptions, and baldness were not really signs of impurity as long as they were devoid of infectious symptoms. We should note that the accusation of sin is absent in these chapters. Although skin disease may be the result of sin, it is not necessarily so. Now, drawing the afflicted person back into the community was a great value. The determination of the disease's active or inactive state belonged to the priest, who exercised his function not as a doctor or a physician. He does not prescribe any medication or treatment, but as a judge and interpreter of the law. His favorable decision was required before purification rites permitting re-entry into the community and insertion as a full member back into the community. When case was doubtful, a period of quarantine was imposed, lasting, let's say, in some cases a week or at most a fortnight. Every age grapples with such diseases that they do not understand and that can evoke panic among the people and ostracism of the victims, as we have already witnessed during and aftermath of COVID-19. Or one can also see this in HIV, SARS, and avian flu that affected the world even earlier. The lepers of every age often were the victims of misinformation and false labeling. Now, chapter 14 describes an elaborate rite of purifying a leper. It was the priest who had to verify whether a leper had been completely healed. Only after the validation by a priest could heal lepers return to their families and society and the community. If the priest found that the person was healed, he could order the enactment of a ritual cleansing. The unusual ceremony of chapter 14, verses 2 to 9, reflects a very primitive idea that the physical illness was caused by a winged evil demon, which had to be exorcised for health to be restored. The enactment of this ritual cleansing involved several things, such as 2 living clean birds, cedar wood, scarlet stuff, and hyssop. The release of the bird in the section symbolizes the departure of the evil spirit. At the end of the ceremony, which lasted 7 days, he shaved, washed his body and clothing once again, and thereby regained his former state of purity. The sevenfold sprinkling indicates perfection and wholeness and completeness. The person is now restored back into the community. Since sensitivity to the poor is a value in Leviticus, doves or pigeons may be substituted for lambs in the process of cleansing. The initial part of the chapter from 33 to 37 deals with the house showing signs of leprosy. The house or home in the Bible is more than simply a structure. It is connected to the family and the members. The home is a dwelling where Sabbath and Passover celebrations are observed. Home is the locus of hospitality, which is very important for the Jews. Care for the purity of the house symbolized the purity of the entire family. It is noteworthy that synagogues are often named like house of something, Beth El, house of God, or Beth Shalom, house of peace, or Beth Israel, house of Israel. Let's move to chapter 15. Chapter 15 speaks of personal uncleanness. The kinds of impurity that this chapter speaks should include not only contagious venereal diseases, but also all types of bodily discharges. The main concern behind this law of uncleanness was cultic, that is, to keep the tabernacle free from all impurities. The process of purification for men and women parallel one another in the narrative. The modern reader should not assume a universal and timeless understanding of sexual morality. Sexuality in every culture and time enjoys a unique understanding, and there are rules regarding appropriate and inappropriate behavior, which is not considered universal, changes from place to place and time to time. Ancient reproductive science was primitive by our standards, and chapter 15 teaches that the mysteries of physical sexuality expressed in genders, male and female, are gifts that bind God and humankind together. An essential aspect of blessing is fertility. Genesis chapter 1:28. God blessed them, telling them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Be masters of the fish of the sea, birds of heaven, and all the living creatures that move on the earth." Blessings shines forth in children. Abundant flocks and fields, a good name in the community. and ultimately shalom, peace. Psalm 128, 5 to 6. The Lord bless you from Zion. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. May you see your children's children. Peace, shalom be upon Israel. Again, verses 31 to 33. Conclude this section. Leviticus chapter 15, 31. In this way, you will keep the people of Israel separate from things that will defile them, so they will not die as a result of defiling my tabernacle that is right there among them. Now, please note, emphasis is given to the fact that these laws prevent the defilement of sacred spaces, particularly the Lord's dwelling, also called the tabernacle or the Holy of Holies. The summary leads us to the next chapter, which will be the theme of the next episode, chapter 16 of Leviticus, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the most sacred day for Israel. The festival was the grand occasion on which the high priest would sprinkle the blood of the bull and goat on the mercy seat in the Holy of Holies. So till then, shalom, and may the peace of the Lord be with you always. Amen.
Loving God, we thank you for the blessing of reading your word together. We ask that these words of life, truth, and hope would continue to impact us in the days ahead. May your love and grace follow each of us, refreshed and blessed by you. Amen.